in Sanskrit we call Vijnan Bharati, or sometimes the acronym is Viva. Well, we thought we'll take this holistic view, an integrative view, and put before the world and put before ourselves this one. So Viva is in that sense is a new perspective. It is not new. It's a really a Vedic perspective. In the Vedic itself, science is not pursued without understanding spirituality. We'll come to that kind of thing. Science cannot be completely understood without spirituality, and also the spirituality cannot be understood without science. And this is a new view which I'm trying to put forward, giving proofs, giving the evidences. Why should we do that? So the topic of my discussion today is that uh, the synthesis of science and spirituality. Synthesis may not mean this in synthesis, or what we try to do in science is unification of various forces, unification of different perspectives, unification of science and spirituality. For what? To get a complete view. And eventually, what I'm trying to we are trying to create an advanced society which takes this unified view, because there is a belief, and which I have that belief, and many people have belief that pursuing this perspective only in scientific term, as we understand science today, or only in spiritual term, has not given us the complete understanding. And as we know, and I think we are very familiar with this term, that we have the half knowledge. And as you know, I think we are taught that half knowledge is very dangerous. Many of the problems in the society, I believe, many of the problems in development, many of the problems from the evolution of humans, we look at ourselves, sometimes wonder, why are we like this? Why there have been so many wars with the development of science, proceeded to let's say modern science, even modern science for last 400 to 5 years, 500 years, from the Kepler's time, from Galileo's time, then Newton, and then Laplace, and it went on, and science has been accelerating with such developments. But we also saw that in spite of, I think, the great understanding of the nature of reality, uh, ever since science came on the fore, there have been also, the humans have seen, of course, there have been wars in the history, but seeing particularly if you look at World War One, World War Two, and then series of wars, the Vietnamese War, the Korean wars, the wars in the entire African continent in war itself, and there have been always the shadows of war looming around. So, and that means the society has not really advanced. It is not a sign of a very good sign for a human advancement with such gifted with such intelligence, and particularly now the scientific knowledge which we've got. That means there is something lacking in the whole process, and that is I perceived is that okay, we have sometimes it's amazement that in the 20th century has been the great century of so many discoveries, so many innovations, so many paradigm shifts. Like the quantum view came, that in the relativity, Einstein brought the view of relativity entirely, and changed the way we look at our universes completely. This one. Similarly, the quantum view has changed, given a totally different perspectives. Several disciplines started coalescing together, converging together. We are getting giving us more complete and something like view of the universe in which we live, the world in which we live. This one. In spite of that, I think we can't say, and you will agree with me that particularly in the context of this corona, I think there was also this one that kind of we have not understood the world. I think, and this is because of the half. I'm not talking relating to the corona, but this is because of this half knowledge. And the fundamental reason for the half knowledge I'm talking about, that we completely put aside what is called spirituality, and as soon as some people I utter that word, suddenly we understand by it's a religious issue, and it must be completely taken out of science, away from science. And this happened earlier, it was not like that, I think. And we are not understood what spirituality means. If you look at our life itself, our complete view, we talk in terms of body, we talk in terms of mind, and we talk in terms of spirit. I think the word spirituality comes from this spirit, what you call this spirit. We in other language, other word, what is something like called as a soul, and then soul is a thing which is very misunderstood word. word in the Granadic. And actually, we are talking about the knowledge of the soul that is within us. This one. We'll have to clarify this. What do you mean by the spirit, or what is known by soul? But in a common sense language, I'm using now common, that it is this soul, the knowledge of the soul, which is now expressed in more philosophical terms like knowledge of the self. What is it? Where is your soul? I think we are, and I think what Shankaracharya, the Atma Bodh, the knowledge of Atma. Sometimes in Sanskrit और in हिंदी terms we हमें हमें विज्ञान क्या है समझना है और हमें अध्यात्म अधि आत्मा अध्यात्म क्या है ये भी समझना बुद्ध आत्मा, and this is not discussed. If you look at our higher education with so many subjects we study, and we'll come to that. How do we study? How do we know? And what kind of methods are employed for that? What are the instruments of knowing? We'll come to that. But the question is that knowledge of the self is completely missing about, and this is considered as the realm of religion, the realm of philosophy, I think, and it's completely missing from this our pursuit of, I think, science itself. So I really want to know that, not for the sake of it, that this has been the Vedic view. If you look at the ancient Indian civilization, so if you look at our civilizations, I would like to share with the young guys and particularly also the scientists that we don't study the civilizations of the world. Though I think this is the age of civilizations, the scientific civilization. Today we can talk that humanity is going through the scientific revolutions or scientific civilization, which of course I think the dominant pursuit of I think understanding the world is based on what is known as what is modern science now. But there have been several civilizations which came to the fore in the last, say, 14,000 years. When you say that, when we started looking at from the hunter-gatherers to we started looking in, staying in together as in the families, in the communities, and in the nagars, and then we became what they call as civilized people. And then such many civilizations, the cities started emerging. Something like cities of those times started emerging, and some of the earliest civilization has been, I would say, the Vedic civilization or Indian civilization, and it has a history of unbroken continuity. I think one thing I would like to say is that there are many civilizations. We talk about the Sumerian civilization, the Mesopotamian civilization. We talk about the Egyptian civilization, Egyptology, Egyptian civilization. We talk about the Greek civilization, which has been, I think, closest to the current, I think, science, what we see, or logic, or the rationalization. I think the Greek civilization, and of course we look at the East, our own things like what India has contributed to the Chinese civilization. I think one word which I remember, how India has contributed to the great Chinese civilization by giving the Buddhist perspective to the entire world, particularly China. And when you get to Japan, and then to Korea, they went to the other side, Indonesia, and other side, this one. But basically, I think the most penetrating words which were expressed by Chinese ambassador when he took over as ambassador to the US, uh, and he said that I want to say here that and I acknowledge. I think these are the words that come that India has captured the minds of Chinese people without sending a single soldier. I think that's very important. Well, I think that kind of how the perspectives, how the right perspectives can change the world, influence the humanity as I think so much so significantly. We see this in India. The different saints, the different philosophers, the different scientists came and they changed the perspectives of the world. Well, and that's why I want to talk about this the integral part of Indian civilization has been. I mentioned about several civilizations: Sumerian, Mesopotamian, the Greeks, and the Romans, and the Incans, and Mayans. I think which are also influenced by India's certain ways, and the civilizations of the East. This one, the tribal civilization earlier. I would not say the civilization, but how the humans started emerging in Africa from chimpanzee and all that kind of thing. Though I think today's humanity is a part of that kind of things. But in the Vedic civilization, sometimes Vedic civilization means what are the timings of Vedic civilization? There are different opinions about them. But it is here the Vedas emerged. Ved itself means to know. Today, the topic which we are discussing is to Ved is about knowing. Vida, this is the dhatu on which that to know. This one, the inquiry. This one, and that's how the Vedas come about. And in Vedic civilization, I must mention here that the science and spirituality, that is the spatial knowledge, that is called the spatial, what is called varied knowledge, Vijnan, Vishesh Jnan, Vijnan, and spirituality means Atma Jnan, I think have been considered together. I think this is a very interesting. If I have to identify, I mean, I say that one distinctive part of the Vedic civilization has been that these two things have been considered together. Without that, you can't have a complete knowledge. And I maintain in my talk today, and I think that without that, you cannot have a complete knowledge. And that's why it's very, very important that science and spirituality must be taught together. Sometimes by science, I think even we have not understood what science means in a broader perspective or in a uh, much deeper perspective. uh, and we will come to that. So science, we mean that science is the pursuit of mathematics, physics, chemistry, biology, in recent years, computer science, in the sciences and technologies. And of course, there are astronomy, astrophysics, and there are several disciplines. There have been, I think, if you really look at kind of the way that they are, the branches of science have emerged in the last century and in the current century, and that kind of thing is amazing, and that's what we study. Today, the 25 crores students are studying from the school level to the say doctor level or the PhD level. 25 crore students are formal education, and you add informal education. So it has been the whole civilization is about acquiring knowledge, acquiring right knowledge. The science is actually the process of acquiring the valid knowledge. There are two types of things. Yathartha jnana, what you call in Sanskrit, that kind of thing, that the right knowledge, and then ayathartha, which is not, which can be false, which can be not be, and we have to say what is called right, and what is wrong. I think that also we have to understand what the seers have given definition for that, and that's why we have to study that. And what I was trying to say is that from the Vedic times we looked at this science and spirituality together. Now, what is science and science? See, science is what you call is that kind of thing. I want to understand objective reality. It is a studying the studying more about the object, what we perceive, for what is what I cognate. I'm sitting in front of the computers and I want to understand. I want to understand about the computers. I want to understand the how in the I can use computer, like how can I deploy computers and know more and more things. And I want to know more about computer architecture, whatever it is. It is objective knowledge about the objects. There is another knowledge which is very important because I'm who is knowing. Question comes. I as a subject is trying to know this object. So it's a subjective knowledge which is not made a part of science for a long time until in the beginning of the last century when I think the quantum view from Max Planck and many other Schrodinger and many other people came and we started understanding the quantum view gave for the first time in the platform the subject was brought into the study that I can't study the object without involving myself in the experiment. I'm part of that experiment and I'm not away from that object which I'm studying. So subject, object, and the process of knowing this, what do you call drishya, drashta, and the whole process of darshan, the observer, the observed, and observation. I think this is what this triad is studied together. This was, I think, new view which he brought in the last century. And today, if you say something like that kind of thing, that this quantum view is going to be the most dominant. I think we are just beginning to explore this. We are it's because very difficult to understand. Some people have really observed that who have studied quantum physics. The great people who advance it, somebody claims that if he understands by studying quantum books on quantum physics or quantum mechanics, that means he has not understood actually. Same statement comes in the Vedas also. If you say somebody claims, and I think we scientists are used to making all kind of claims. Somebody says that and tells you that I have understood quantum mechanics and I'm going to teach it now, that means he has not understood really. If that is one sign, and here I remember the words of Socrates, this one that Socrates uttered that so Socrates was considered to be a very wise person of his times, very knowledgeable person of his times, and many young people used to gather around him. This one, and and when they will say that no, only you can tell us, he said that only thing I know is I know nothing. I think the sign of a I think knowledgeable person or the educated person, a really person of knowledge, is that he is very humble. He should be very humble. And I think the words I remember, and this I always feel that the only thing I know when I'm speaking of science and spirituality is I know nothing. I think that is the truth, and I'm just a student. I'm trying to further explore. It is now this whole process of is like a peeling off onion. Onion has several layers. If you start peeling off the one layer of onions, I think we ask any housewife, then there is another layer appears, and then another layer appears. It is like the process of really peeling off that ignorance, the layer of ignorance, is actually knowing. So that's how we come to the kernel knowledge. That's why I come to the wisdom itself. That is called the kernel. This one is that process. I'm in that process along with you on this. So we are trying to understand science and spirituality in that context. So spirituality is about knowledge of the self, which has been completely ignored. From school education. This one, there are deep issues. For example, now I mentioned to you so many things. I mentioned to you so many subjects. I can read off. I think many subjects which I have a library before me consisting right now in my own book here at office about 5,000 books, and many libraries of the world millions of books. I remember in IIT once I took a when I was studying in IIT that I found the IIT library, which was a good library at that time. Yeah, I'm talking in the 70s when I was doing my PhD, IIT Delhi. It has got 70,000 books. I thought that, and I saw that many books were not even touched. I think one thing today, the culture of reading has vanished. And I don't know what Corona is going to change, but people have started reading. I understand the culture of reading, which is newspaper, the reading of books or journals have not say, but reading books and great books have really waned off, and we are trying to revive that. And I thought that I should study all the books, or at least I must touch all the books. But and I found that many of the great books were not touched upon. That's not today is not the subject of that. What is the importance of library? What I'm trying to say is that a very important aspect of our knowledge we have ignored, um, maybe rightly so because of the I think because of you the challenge which happened in the as a religious evolved and the people were mixing religion with the philosophy, will mixing religion with many other things, and it was creating confusion. But what the religion says is the primary primacy of that kind of thing, and people wanted to separate these two things, and rightly so. And we also today in the scientific pursuits we don't want to bring religion. I'm not talking about religion here in that sense. I'm talking about the spirituality. Spirituality means who is trying to know, and this issue has been addressed, I think, extremely well in Naneshwari, and in the Tika or on the commentary on one of the most profound commentaries on Bhagavad Gita. This one, and this issue is really touched upon deeply on this one. And in fact, in Bhagavad Gita, the chapter 7, if you look, there is a chapter 7 is titled as Jnana Vijnana Yoga. It is it is Jnan, which actually meaning, I think there are two different types of meaning. Um, uh, and Vijnan means it's a very special knowledge. Here I'm using the scientific way. Vijnan today I'm using the same type. Though in spirituality in Bhagavad Gita, Vijnan means the Vishishta, more advanced knowledge. That is, he's talking about the spiritual experience. I think that I'm not going getting into that. This is spiritual experience and spiritual knowledge. That is one way of interpretation. But I'm taking a very conventional meaning. Science means what we know today in terms of science is a discipline which is pursued through the modern science or through science, a scientific discipline, and Adhyatmic knowledge means the spirituality, the knowledge of the self. The Shankaracharya uses that Atma Bodh. So, yeah, having said this one, uh, Saint Naneshwara described this very well. Nikanath. It calls what Saint Naneshwar calls Vidyan is the perspective of Prapanchik Jnan. It is main Prapanchik means not, I'm not talking about knowledge of the worldly knowledge in that sense, but made from Panchamahabhutas. I think we said the whole universe or the cosmos or world, the entire reality consists of the Mahabhutas, five Mahabhutas, and which we all will we are familiar with the Prithvi, Aap, Tej, Vayu, and Akash, and they are very deep connotations. It has got deeper connotation and multidimensional connotations, and this is called Prapanchik Jnan, Jnan of that the entire world that I cognate or universe that I cognate. This one, and whereas Adhyatmic knowledge, Jnan is about the Atma, knowledge of the self, which cognates. Maybe the question Raman Maharshi is also asked that, who is trying to understand? Who has got that desire to understand? Who has got a quest to understand? The Jidnyasa, Athato Brahma Jidnyasa. That's how it begins. I want to understand this entire reality, what was called as Brahma, kind of thing. And then Brahma Sutras try to explain it. The Vedas try to explain it. Upanishads forms that try to explain. Bhagavad Gita tries to explain is that kind of thing. That Jidnyasa. Who has that Jidnyasa? And we have to understand about who is that. Then that is Adhyatmic knowledge, Adhyatmic pursuit. This is what we call spiritual pursuit. Now, quantum mechanics, of course, I think is a wonderful beginning for the humanity. I would say that when the yugas change a certain way, if the new yuga comes, our perspective of the world changes. I feel that this quantum mechanics or the scientific world, I think from Galilean and the Newton's times, give one perspective. But when Einstein came on the ground in the beginning of the last century, I think particularly in the 30s, the 1930s, not 30s, when the quantum mechanics started emerging in a more fuller form, and we are trying to understand it more and more. And today, when I'm working on the quantum computers, all that kind of thing, a new perspective I see is emerging before the new power of knowledge or new perspective is emerging, which take this view together. We are not really come into that fore, but we have now started touching that view. So that's why I wanted to bring this issue. The science and spirituality must be brought together. Now, before we bring science and spirituality, how do I know the self knowledge when I talk about? How do I know that I'm just saying that I want to know? Say, I'm just listed the disciplines in we that we teach in our universities and higher education: maths, physics, chemistry, biology, environment, astronomy, engineering, technology, medical thing, the cognitive sciences, information sciences, the commerce and business, the warfares and strategic technologies, and also I want to know the arts and aesthetics, architectures, and a lot of art discipline of the. Also, I study the dance, drama, multimedia, and there are several things which we study, and my whole life goes, and the time is never enough. By the time I go to PhD, I'm trying to only now. This is not possible. I'll choose one subject out of it. I'll choose a sub subject and go deep into that, as we call the philosophers. They do that kind of thing. Try to know more and more about less and less. Eventually, I try to know everything about nothing. That's I think the joke that what philosophers know, or I think the researchers do, is that they want to know everything about less and less and less, so much that I want to know everything about nothing. Similarly, there's a counter view that the like generalists, the people who manage us, like the I think it is accused of the bureaucrats who can manage any discipline in any ministry. They keep changing from one ministry to another ministry, as though they were experts in all kind of disciplines, and within 1 or 2 years they are transferred, and that is another view. They can't think. So you ought to know less and less of more and more things, called generalists. Eventually, both really don't know the thing, and that is a fallacy. Anyway, I'm not getting into that this one, but we are trying to now see that uh, coming to a very very fundamental issue. How do I know? When I say that I know something, One thing is directly that we have been endowed our body or our architecture, human architecture, or the entire life architecture. And it's true for not only for humans, it's true for animals. It is true for all living beings, conscious beings. Uh, and it is not just conscious beings. We'll go a little deeper. Even it is true for the even the inanimate particles also, that they have their own. They may have their own choices which they can make, which will come later in quantum mechanics. This one, but uh, what we are trying to, how do we know? Now we have been given these instruments of knowledge. I think we have been given a great faculty of seeing, my eyes, and listening, hearing, my ears. I think then I'm my nose and smelling, and my taste, and my touch. So all the five jnanendriyas, the instruments of knowledge. This is amazing creation which has been given to all living beings. All living beings I'm talking about. I'm talking about insects. I'm not talking about the question. I'm not coming to virus is a whether it's alive or not, is a crystal or a living form, the biological form. I'm not coming to that stage right now. But almost all living beings, the conscious beings, the stage of this one, this giving these five instruments, which are connected to what we call as mind, which is now what is mind, and that's another question. And then intellect, and then beyond that, the spirit, the thing which makes it the conscious being, kind of thing. So this is the architecture that has been given to us. Now, how do I know? First thing is that this amazing instrument of really seeing. I'm looking at my image here. I'm just seeing. So this eyes have tremendous instrument. People have studied this. People are still studying it. How do we see really this instrument? Of course, it's like a called something like a camera, like a camera, which is when we are able to see that. In fact, we are able to create artificial eyes also, some way to or correct the vision also. Certain ways I can change. I can go deeper, like a macroscope. I can go through the telescope, look into the sky, peer into the sky, and go to the galaxies and understand. I think what we have never seen before. This one. So eye is a tremendous instrument. Even if you just say now, if I coming from the image processing perspective, when I go into the image processing perspective, one I so say as I look at yourself, like that, I have captured image of say several, not billion, trillion bytes. One image, one single image like this. If you say the realistically, if you have to create a camera of that kind, it is going to be very very difficult. And there are many other features with all its splendor of colors, all splendors of dimensions. I can visualize through my eyes, and of course adding different instruments to me like microscope or telescope, the radio telescopes, and with the aid of computers, the images from which we can interpret certain things. So eye is one great. So is my ears. So I see, I hear. The capability of my speech understanding, listening, that the signal processing is so amazing. And that kind of thing, in a crowd of thousands of people, kind of thing, if a child really is crying, the mother can find out this is my child. Yeah, the voice is coming from here, and so on. Similarly, a child can find about amongst this is not true of only the humans but also in the animals, that like a calf, just born calf, finds his mother amongst so many herd of cows we may have thousands of and goes there. So anyway, this is a tremendous ability which I think scientifically we are studying. His ears, the nose, the kind of smells we have, the kind of tastes that we have, and the kind of haptic, uh, there is the touch things, like by just touching a girl, suppose like somebody is touching them with bad intention, the girl knows immediately that it may be just a touch, but somebody just touching it, something she knows that this fellow has a bad intention. There was a research done in a COEP for that. I think some girls came out that some boy is touching some way and kind of thing and pretending they had not touched. I think how do they come to that conclusion? So this sensory apparatus that has been given with the five, this one is amazing. That's how we know. And this in what you call the study of knowledge. uh, what is called the discipline of epistemology. Epistemology is the discipline in philosophy, in our this one, which is not taught very well. I think in our studies in higher education, which is very important, I feel. So this is called pratyaksha, the direct knowledge that I obtained from my senses. And here we must compare, because this is how generally I think we believe that if I have seen something, if I heard something, if I touched something, if I tested something, it is created as a valid knowledge. Although I think I'll not confuse the issue right now. It can be valid or non-valid. Particularly now, the computers brought out that phenomena that if I see a picture, if I see a picture with somebody clicks me with a girl, and I can claim that kind of thing, that this fellow has having some, I think, relationship with that, and but now I know that I can put them together and I alter them. I can put any kind of perspectives, and I need not the courts. It cannot be a testimony for the courts or anything like that kind of thing. But I'll not let's not get so it's called protection. Another faculty which has been given to us, I think, which is very important, or the whole science rests on that. It is based on anuman, that is inference. I think I do the experiment and I come to the conclusion by based on certain logic that I use, and based on that I infer that such and such things, if they come together, they react and they give rise to another thing phenomena like this. Like this, so anuman is a very powerful instrument, uh, gives us a powerful tool for understanding, for knowing. And Anuman itself now is a whole powerful discipline called logic comes out of that. The Nyaya Shastra or the Anuman logic. We don't study logic, but logic in that terms, can't think, but everything rests on that. This is the logic and understanding how we develop that capability in our brain, or how it is innately this one that we arrive at discussion. And all conscious beings, including animals and insects, they also have a logical faculty. Though I would say that in humans it is most developed. The entire computers discipline comes from the, I think, the power of logic and advancement of the phenomena of logic itself. So Anuman is very important as the by which we know, and that all scientific progress or progress in computers have been possible because of this logic, this Anuman, the inference capability. The third faculty that has been given to us is that which cannot be completely expressed by neither by fully by pratyaksha or Anuman is Shabda. Shabda means language, the ability of the, I think, to understand and communicate with language. And as you know that there are so many languages. I'm now speaking to in English, uh, but Vijnan Bharati want to express as the position that we have taken that many people do not understand English language, particularly if we look at Indian perspective. So maybe that maximum 10% of the people now, and when I was this, hardly 2-3% people understood English, and we were saying that this lecture should be conducted in Hindi. In fact, people would have done that. I think more so that more people understand, more people would understand this, or more sometimes in Maharashtra, I may be able to communicate. I should be able to communicate in Marathi, and we have so many languages. We have Tamil, which is a very distinct language, kind of thing. We see that kind of thing. And today we have 20 official languages, and they really don't represent all the languages. And there is always a pressure to introduce to include more and more Rajbhashas. I think the scheduled languages in the thing, and we may have very soon 50 plus language or 56 languages, as Naneshwara said in Naneshwari. We may have, and in fact, there are thousands of languages. If you consider the Boli Bhasha, I think the colloquial languages, there are thousands of languages. Many languages are also dying because they don't have technology, they don't have people, they don't have the speakers now. This one. But what we are coming to is Shabda is a very important thing. The word, the language, and when language means words, is vocabulary, is grammar, and there are so many dimensions of language, and we want to get this field. This is another thing by which we know, and that's why there is so much emphasis on understanding. We say not only logic and mathematics, but also understanding the language. This one understanding English, understanding Hindi, understanding other languages of the world, foreign languages, as we call it. Shabda is a very important thing. Then there is another dimension what we recognize in the Oriental perspective or the Indian perspective or in our philosophy is Upaman. That all this is fine, but they still, I think, Upaman or simile or comparison or metaphor stands as another distinct way of knowing. So, although this can be, some people say it's part of Anuman, or Anuman can be extended to include Upaman as well. Will not go into that discussion. Upman is that kind of thing, that how I can create. For example, I want to read some architectural drawing. I can write a text about that, and still I will not understand, but I just make a diagram and I understand it. Even for software design, I make a flow chart, and by flow chart, I understand immediately rather than describing that piece of code. Even if I give the entire piece of code, I will not understand what I'm trying to communicate. But if I define the architecture or a flow chart, I immediately understand. So there, Upaman is important. Though many people don't give so much importance to Upaman, this one. Then there is another dimension called Arthapatti, what is called postulation. This is another amazing faculty the humans have more than other animals, is that I postulate, I observe something. We all are observing the same thing, but suddenly I will come out with some one observation that I postulate thing, and from which I can show that, oh no, no, it's like that. I see these things like that sign. Then no, no, this interprets that the way the ship is coming on the sea, and first I see the top, and then I see the base of the ship. That means the Earth is round. Some so like this may be logical, or I can, or it can be also the postulation of this, from which all creativity comes. This is also a phenomena. I think this is also a ability that has been given to us, what is called arthapatti. This one, this is very important. Another thing very important is this, from which it comes, and very important in spiritual disciplines and the knowledge of the safe, is anupalabdhi, affirmation by negation, that absence of something, the object, that why I think there is nobody there now before me. That means he's somewhere else. He is not here. Means itself I get now knowledge that he's somewhere else. This one, it is not like this. That doesn't happen by seeing that the failure in experiment, and it doesn't work many times, many of scientists come to that conclusion that it means this is not there, this is not there, this is not there. That means it is something else. This one, affirmation by negation. This comes in artificial intelligence very well. So this anupalabdhi is another one. There are other auxiliary pramanas. What I was describing is the kind of thing that the evidences, the pramanas, and there is a whole discipline of pramanas, is three more things. That is what you call aitihya in Sanskrit. That is like a tradition, itias, what happened in the thing. There are many of the things which we know is because of certain traditions. I think much of the knowledge of about religions, about societal behavior, about things comes from the this faculty of aitihya. And then there is another dimension which is called sambhavya, which comes from the systems, which I think another, there is a problem of many people, hard scientists or engineers have problem on this. Sambhav means the, what you call is statistically possibility, probability. Many people, hard scientists do not understand this, and then they don't include it. But how people who use statistics, they know. People who use probability, they know the importance of this discipline. And people who beyond probability is possibility, or in a fuzzy information set, there is a whole new discipline called fuzzy logic, which is a sambhavya, the discipline of possibilities. They say the politics is the art of possibilities. This one. So these are different terms, different, but sambhavya. And there is another knowledge which comes to us from completely what you call aparoksha gyan. They come from within ourselves. Um, Much of the discoveries in science have come from intuition. Not, we can't say suddenly I see a dream, and suddenly I come out with that. No, it must be like this, and that is intuition. This is another way. So I think we discussed the six main ways and the three auxiliary ways of knowing, and this whole science is called epistemology. And I argue here that we should, and many of the philosophers differ from each other, because some of them religions differ from each other, is because they say no, no, I don't admit all the six. It's the Vedantic people who admit all the six. Is the Buddhist people don't admit this. The Christianity does not admit this. Actually, people who are studying religion, who are adherents of religions, if you come to the knowledge level, this problem comes fundamentally from there. Many people express only pratyaksha and anuman. Some people access only pratyaksha, like charvaka. That no, I have not seen it. That's why it is not the truth. So nothing. Where is God? Question comes. I have not seen. So God does not exist. They don't know. And I don't see many things. For example, I don't see the virus. There are so many billions of virus on this table. Maybe somebody good and bad, maybe COVID or not COVID, we don't know, but they cannot be seen by naked eye. How do we say it doesn't exist? Bacteria, many things, many of the things which I don't see by my instruments of knowledge, they actually dominate the whole universe. If you ask me, this one imagination, anyway, I'll not go into that. But much of the fights of religions and religious views have come because we have not understood this the disciplines of, I think, what is called epistemology kind of thing. Imaginary numbers. What is imaginary number? I never understood what was that. But when imaginary numbers came and started explaining what kind of mathematical computations can be used by imaginary numbers or complex numbers, only those who have studied that they will know, and much of the discoveries or inventions or innovations have come from that. But I will not go into that kind of thing. But what I'm trying to raise is that if you go to the abstract disciplines like spirituality, where is God? Who is seeing? The question like that. What is the nature of that thing which who sees that kind of things? And these questions come only through understanding of the spirituality, and I will tell you that having studied spirituality in that sense, the spirit or the soul or the faculty of that concern, and we say I know God in that sense, so you are completely ignorant about the whole nature of reality itself. This requires a deep discussion, that if you are trying to understand the reality by studying so many things, but you don't know what you are, who is seeing this, the nature of myself, what is the purpose of my life, I don't know. What is the purpose of this experiment? What my coming on this onto this planet? If I don't know where I would go in my life, I will not go very far. What is I don't know the purpose of my life. When I'm sitting in this office, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. What is the purpose of my being here, and all that thing. So you can how foolish it can be. So I think what I was trying to argue, or try to understand with my limited knowledge, what I got today, these two disciplines must be pursued together. Science through the instruments of knowledge, spirituality also has its own eyes. I must say spiritual that can views that by which this one I can see a different perspective of the not only myself, but the world around myself. And this kind of thing. I cannot express, for example, love. I'm not seeing love. Where is love? Compassion. This kind of thing, which many of the faculties which I got, unless I understand, I think there are many other faculties which are to be looked at in differently. Why do they come? Actually, the spirituality, the main purpose of spirituality is that how I'm able to perceive this world. No, we know that we have Jnanendriyas, and I talk about the five senses, I think. But in the spirituality, what we are trying to see is that I cannot perceive this world or this society unless that is within me. The object itself is within myself, and I have proven that kind of thing. I mean, many of us have proven that in computers. We prove that if you have to recognize one word or one image, like recognize was a one syllable, like or om or say a, this one thing, I have to write a software by which all kind of possibility in that set of I think the graphical representations of the language of the word so must be there to compare with. So unless I know about the entire set, I will never know that. So this comes to the conclusion. This comes to that unless I know the entire universe, I will not know me. I will not know the world. How I am able to identify different things in this huge universe that is there, because I have capability to comprehend or cognate the entire universe. I have been given with that. And that's why the Vedas call it the five great Mahavakyas. I think the enunciations, five great enunciations by which we know this one ourselves is that, and you must have heard this, many of us must have, Tattvamasi. So, what you are trying to know, that is you. Tattvam Asi. Aham Brahmasmi. I am that Brahma which you are looking for. Myself. You don't have to go this. That Brahma is myself. What you are trying to understand. Myself. Go beyond that kind of thing. Which we are coming to this Adhyatma. I am Atma Brahma. Means I miss what? And beyond that, I am going to the Prajnanam Brahma. Prajnanam is the consciousness within me. That itself is the consciousness, and that is the subject of now study in computer science and many other people, the cognitive sciences, that my consciousness itself is that Brahma. So what I'm trying to study is within me, is myself itself, what I'm trying to know. And the auxiliary knowledge may be the scientific knowledge for that. The sensory apparatus that have been attached to this sort of thing, we are trying to know the different dimensions of that knowledge, different aspects of that knowledge. But the ultimate, the core knowledge is the knowledge of the Atma itself, and that is the purpose of the spiritual disciplines. So what we are trying to say is that India, we have been gifted by our rishis this togetherness, together, that self knowledge, knowledge of the self, the entire reality itself is within me, and in fact, I am the manifestation of that entire reality and the purpose of life. What is the purpose of these studies? Purpose of life itself is to understand myself and fulfill that purpose through enlightenment. What do you say? The person has enlightened. Buddha was enlightened because Buddha came to that through practices like meditation, and this is one of the practices to understand that knowledge. This are to deep meditations and many other things. In fact, I would say that this meditation is one practice. Obtaining knowledge is like this. Studies is another practice. But just by pure seva, by pure service, by pure love and compassion, you can know this grand truth by itself. So there are many ways to know this one, and anyone can understand this without study, without having a degree. There are many people, our grandmothers, etc., may not understand that mathematics, but she knows more about the reality than ourselves because through the act of love and compassion, which can be more powerful than just pure knowledge itself, pure mathematical knowledge or scientific knowledge itself. So I will conclude here that my purpose was only my thing that I wanted to know this in its entirety, and I've been struggling, and I once come to the conclusion that this, if you have to get this knowledge in the right form perspective, you will require a guru. Guru means a person who knows this, not in terms of the articulation, what I have done, not writing papers, research papers in many journals, but actually experiencing it. In fact, the Jnana Vijnanics talks about that kind of experiential knowledge. Experience means I have understood, means I have experienced that kind of thing. It is something like talking about milk and is white, it is a liquid form, it is this kind of nutritious, all kind of things, but without drinking that milk itself and getting nourished. So we require both. We require to understand the nature of milk, but also we require to taste that milk ourselves and rather than talking about it or writing about it. Friends, I think this is why I'm making the compelling case. And Vijnan Bharati, I must say, the Vijnan Bharati wants to do this, bring this knowledge together. And that is the one, I think we have articulated many times how Vijnan Bharati is different from any other scientific movement which we have got, is that we are trying to take this integral view. Friends, at this stage, I will conclude my lecture. But I think we have, through the last 30 days, we have been going through this series of lectures by very distinctive people, I think, which are come. For example, I was listening to the Kal Garana itself. The other day, somebody was trying to explain the Kal Garana, and many of the things which we did not know. That kind of thing, that how do you count the timing itself, uh, and how Indians have progressed in that discipline, how the panchangs are created, how the almanac are prepared, how the calendars are prepared, and how that tradition has continued. So there are many things which we not learn in our traditionally through in the university education. We can learn through this process, and we are very happy. I'm personally happy that Vijnan Bharati, in the age of this darkness, what you call in the times of this darkness, gloomy perspective, we are bringing enlightenment and joy. There is a tremendous thing which knowledge gives us, and this I can share from my own experience, that when you understand something, when you get some knowledge, you get a joy which cannot be equaled by anything else, not by money, not by riches, not by facilities, but I think the joy of getting knowledge is a unparalleled joy which humans have. And that's why so many people pursue, I think, not just for the sake of exam or getting a job, but try to understand this beautiful world which has been including ourselves to be given to us. So we'll now bring in the next sequence of speakers will come next month based on this experience, and we can give more richer experience to you. And Vidyan Bharati is always eager to share, I think, to bring the such perspectives, particularly from the perspectives which I think from the Vedic knowledge, right from the 14,000 years, I think I would say from the Vedic times or before that, it came not only to us but for the world, because we believe whole world is one family. One spiritual perspective is that when Saint Nanachara declared that no, it is not for me, or it is not for my own organization. The whole world is my family. And no, he goes beyond that. The whole world is myself. What I'm trying to know is I'm trying to know myself through this understanding, this knowledge. So in these things, we'll try to bring these perspectives before our um, students, the community, and Vijnan Bharti, and all those who wish to know about it. Thank you indeed. I've taken 1 hour, our perspective, I think, which I shared my views on this important issue of science and spirituality. Thank you so much.